It looks like the crypto crackdown of 2023 is now in full swing. The US Department of Justice is now going after even NFT rug pullers, even if they're non US citizens living in Dubai. The New York Attorney General is suing project CEOs if they make misleading statements. The FTC isn't going to let anyone use employment based non competes anymore, so no more project secrets. If you led a crypto entity that's now bankrupt, the courts have decided it's okay to serve you via Twitter, even if you're halfway around the world. And on top of all that, there are rumors afoot that the feds are putting the squeeze on SBF Caroline and Company to give up the goods on even bigger fish. Apparently, crypto was never really above the law, and now the chickens are coming home to roost. The silver lining to all this, and you can call it being a young ecosystem with good timing, prudent judgment, or just learning from the mistakes of others. But it looks like Cardano might be able to emerge from this thing unscathed. Ready? Let's go. Today, we're going to discuss the Department of Justice charging someone for an NFT rug pull, the New York Attorney General going after Mashinsky, the FTC proposing a ban on employment-based non-competes, Singapore and a U.S. bankruptcy court going after the 3AC boys, some big rumors about the feds putting the squeeze on SBF and Company, and most importantly, why none of these things are happening in Cardano. If this looks more like you on a Friday night fun night than it does like a law enforcement crackdown, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the army of spies. Stake pool, ticker AOS. If you are an NFT rug puller, this news should probably concern you. And I feel like there's a lot of you out there. I sometimes wonder if you guys are all just hanging out in Dubai, sort of burning through your money, going out to clubs at night. I don't even know what you guys do, but I'm sure it involves spending your money. But it turns out the DOJ is not going to sit by idly. And I think this is part of a bigger crackdown in crypto. We talked about this last year. Last year, it seemed obvious to me that a wave of enforcement against crypto was coming, but it also seemed obvious to me, and we discussed this on the channel, we talked about this on the channel, that probably the current administration was going to wait until after their midterm elections because they were worried about losing both chambers of the US Congress, both the House and the Senate. They sort of squeaked by, did not lose the Senate, but it was kind of obvious they were going to wait until after that election. And if they waited till after the election, that sort of put them in the holiday season. So it meant they were going to probably wait until the start of this year, 2023. And it looks like that's exactly what happened. We're seeing a whole spate of enforcement activity just in this first week of January. And this is part of it. This is enforcement against an NFT rug pull. The interesting thing is that the character charged here, Aurélien Michel, is a French national in Dubai, or at least he was in Dubai until he made the mistake of flying into JFK Airport in New York. He flew into JFK, and of course, they nabbed him. Nobody said the criminals were smart. And you might be debating, hey, is a rug pull really a criminal activity? So it turns out that according to Homeland Security investigations and also Internal Revenue Service criminal investigations, that it is if you made misrepresentations to the consumers buying your NFTs. They think that that's fraud and that this character stole nearly $3 million from investors for his own personal use. These charges were related to the Mutant Ape Planet NFTs. Yes, we are still talking about cartoon apes. The Mutant Ape Planet NFTs, and this was a part of the robbery forest in Ethereum. The charges say the NFTs were marketed with, actually not the charges, this press release about the charges say the NFTs were marketed with promises of exclusive benefits potential purchasers would receive. Those benefits included exclusive opportunities for additional investments, giveaways, merchandise, and other rewards. However, after sending their crypto and obtaining the NFT, purchasers received nothing while their crypto was diverted from the project to crypto wallets controlled by the defendant. In total, more than 2.9 million in crypto was diverted as part of the scheme. So The DOJ is paying attention to rug pulls as small as 2.9 million. This, in the grand scheme of things, this is not the biggest financial crime that has ever occurred in crypto. So if you're guilty of these things, and I think a lot of it's not a small number of people who've done this in crypto. If you are guilty of promising a bunch of things to people, to consumers, to crypto consumers, to get them to buy your NFTs, and then you pieced out, I think we've all seen this happen many, many times. The DOJ is willing to go after a rug pull as small as 2.9 million. This probably means that there are a large number of rug pulls on their radar. And this suspect, Aurelien Michel, he probably had no idea that he was going to be arrested when he flew to JFK, which tells me he probably had no idea he was even on the DOJ's radar. Either that or super not smart. Again, nobody said the criminals were smart, but obviously he would not have flown to JFK if he would have realized that the DOJ was just going to snatch him up. So if you are an NFT rug puller, you should probably be pretty worried about 2023. It looks like NFT rug pullers are not the only ones getting in trouble for misrepresentations. The New York State Attorney General is now suing Alex Mashinsky for misrepresentations related to Celsius. This article says the lawsuit alleges that Mashinsky repeatedly made false and misleading statements about Celsius's safety to encourage investors to deposit billions of dollars in digital assets onto the platform. As Celsius lost hundreds of millions of dollars of assets in risky investments, Mashinsky misrepresented and concealed Celsius's deteriorating financial condition. Mashinsky also failed to register as a salesperson for Celsius and as a securities and commodities dealer. Attorney General James' lawsuit seeks to ban Mashinsky from doing business in New York and require him to pay damages, restitution, and disgorgement. So you can imagine how easy it is for the CEO of some large crypto project to make representations, to induce people to use his platform, and for those misrepresentations to turn out to be untrue if the project collapses. Then on top of all the fraud allegations, they've also got these accusations related to Mashinsky being an unregistered securities and commodities dealer. These are almost scarier because you could say that either he was an unregistered securities and commodities dealer or he wasn't, independent of the collapse of Celsius. So this should make people afraid that a state attorney general's office could throw those kind of allegations at pretty much any project they get mad at. So the big question for us in Cardano is why we haven't seen much of this at all in Cardano so far. Optimistically, you could say that Cardano has a different culture and our projects have better judgment, or they have learned from the mistakes of their counterparts, their antecedents in the EVM world. We could make some optimistic arguments like that. Or it could just be our timing. We're a much younger ecosystem than a lot of the EVM world, than Ethereum. We're much younger than Ethereum. DeFi is much more deeply rooted in Ethereum. The centralized finance projects like Celsius are more concerned with the Ethereum world and the Bitcoin world and sort of the legacy first and second gen crypto world. They're more concerned with those ecosystems. Maybe it's just our timing. Maybe we're just lucky. But I do think if we were lucky this cycle and we don't see a huge number of enforcement actions against projects and people in Cardano in this cycle, we will in the next cycle if we don't learn from what happened to these projects. Probably you shouldn't do CeFi. You probably shouldn't do centralized finance projects like BlockFi and Celsius. BlockFi is also mentioned here because you probably know that last summer, BlockFi also had to settle with the New York State Attorney General's office. This is probably enough to give people direction just to not do these kinds of CeFi projects in Cardano. I don't think it really adds that much to the ecosystem, and it never seems to work out. What CeFi platform is doing okay right now? I'm sure there's some small obscure ones somebody can name, but as far as like the big successful platforms, they've all run into pretty serious problems. I think this is enough to say we should probably not do CeFi in Cardano, at least not like these projects are doing it. And we also shouldn't try to replicate the use cases of CeFi in DeFi, because right now the state attorney general's office is just going after these CeFi projects, but I don't think they care whether a project is centralized or decentralized. They're probably still going to go after the leaders of those projects. Like if Celsius had been this big and it had been decentralized, but there was still a Mashinsky type character out there, I don't think the New York State Attorney General is going to care whether it was decentralized or centralized. They're still going to go after the Mashinsky type character. So maybe the play here is just not to do any of this kind of stuff, not to replicate these use cases, because what happens when there's some kind of systemic failure in the greater crypto ecosystem, all of the entities that sort of attack this use case in the same way as these platforms, Celsius and BlockFi, they all seem to get in this trouble. And then pretty soon, not too long thereafter, along come the regulators and the law enforcement type figures. The other big lesson here for Cardano project leaders, besides just not doing this BlockFi Celsius type use case, is probably that you need to be very careful what statements you make to users and potential users to induce them to use your platform. You'll see one of the big crimes here that keeps getting repeated, alleged crimes, alleged infractions they're attributing to Mashinsky here, is that he said Celsius was safer than a bank. This is the kind of thing, this is the kind of rhetoric that project leaders in crypto use all the time. It's very easy to get caught up in sort of the revolutionary nature of crypto and especially Cardano. A big portion of crypto is definitely out to upend the traditional fiat economic, monetary, financial, traditional systems. And there's a lot of really bombastic, revolutionary type talk. But it turns out if you say things like that, if you say that your platform is safer than a bank and your project collapses, the state attorney general's office is probably going to be more than happy to go after you for making claims that it finds to be misleading and false. Here's another note for probably some Cardano projects. So in Cardano, obviously the whole open source movement is pretty big, and there are probably a lot of projects who would never think to try to use non-compete clauses in their employment agreements with the people working in their project. But I'm sure there are some projects who try to have people working on the project sign non-competes because it's pretty common in business in North America in general. I myself have been subject to a non-compete clause. I think it's been something that companies in general have been able to get away with for a long time. But it looks like the FTC is not down anymore. The FTC proposes a rule to ban non-compete clauses, which they say hurt workers and harm competition. The agency estimates the new rule could increase workers' earnings by nearly $300 billion per year. They say by stopping this practice, the agency estimates that the new proposed rule could increase wages by that amount and expand career opportunities for about 30 million Americans. So I don't know. I don't know if we have projects in Cardano that are currently having people sign non-competes. Probably. I mean, we've got a lot of open source kind of projects, but we've also got a lot of projects that are trying to protect their trade secrets, whether that be code or something else. And of course, if they are the only ones developing some use case in the Cardano space, they don't want their lead developer to just pop up, give his 2 weeks and pop up, 15 days later announcing his own project in exactly the same use case. Very understandable, but it looks like the FTC is moving towards not allowing non-compete clauses just in general anymore. So you thought you could run an enormous crypto entity, have it totally collapse, losing all the money, and then just continue posting on Twitter like everything's fine. Not the case, according to the High Court of Singapore. This is what the Three Arrows Capital Boys found out just recently. the High Court of Singapore was more than happy to serve them via JPEG on Twitter, since the two of them have been so busy posting on Twitter. And Singapore didn't care at all that they both list their location as Dubai. Sadly for them, Singapore wasn't the only country that doesn't care that the United Arab Emirates doesn't have extradition treaties with some other countries. Almost simultaneously, the U.S. Bankruptcy Court decided to subpoena Kyle Davies, again, not caring at all that he lists his location as Dubai. Finally, it looks like there are rumors afoot, and these are just rumors. I'm not representing this as fact, but there are rumors afoot that the Department of Justice is after much bigger fish than Sam Bankman-Fried, Caroline, and Gary. This is a little bit, I guess it shouldn't be a surprise, but this probably surprised a lot of people. This post says, update, DOJ is squeezing FTX perps, SPF, Caroline, and Gary hard for way more than FTX Alameda malfeasance. DOJ/SEC wants decisive and quick wins within the entire crypto lending and trading ecosystem. Any and all desks in the crosshairs. Several crypto VC funds are also in the crosshairs. Remember, Sam, Caroline, and Gary are all facing decades to millennia in prison unless they give the DOJ every single syllable of the what, but more importantly, the who that they want, that they know. Who might they be talking about? The rumors continue. Update, DCG/Genesis are under active investigation by the SEC. Sources confirmed that there are multiple whistleblowers that have come forward. So this could all just be unfounded rumor. We definitely see our share of that in crypto. But if not, this could get pretty big. We'll have to wait and see how all this turns out. I hope you had a great week. I hope you're getting ready to do fun winter things if you're in the northern hemisphere, or fun summer things, I guess, if you're in the southern hemisphere. But in either case, I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.